Hello, my name is Joe Stevenson, and welcome to STW's training video on the M01 CANfigurator program. This video will primarily cover how to connect and configure your J1939 M01 sensor with the CANfigurator software. But first, I'll just give a brief overview of the M01 sensor itself. It's especially designed to be used in off-highway vehicles. The EMC shock and vibration protection is designed for the machines and the rough environments that they normally operate in. The M01 is available with pressure ranges from 0 to 10 bar, all the way up to 0 to 1000 bar. There's a variety of configuration options for the output signal and the electrical and pressure connections. And for the output signal, some of those options include 0 or 4 to 20 milliamp, 0 to 10 volt, 0 to 5 volt, 1 to 6 volt, and lastly a 10 to 90% of voltage, which is also known as ratiometric output. For the electrical connections, some of the configurations there, you can get an M12 connector, a DIN bayonet. There's also a DTO4 3-pole and 4-pole. We have amp super seals, straight cable outputs, and other connections are available on request. Lastly, for the pressure connection, we've got a G1/4, 1/4 NPT with and without manometer. There's the SAE4 and SAE6. And again, here as well, other pressure connections are available on request. So moving on to the actual program, you should have something similar to this where you've got the M01 CANfigurator exe program file, the INI file, which is the configuration for the CAN DLL. It is where you tell the program where to find the driver for your CAN dongle that you're using to connect to the sensor. And then also the configurator operator manual. So right now we'll go into the CANfigurator exe file, and it'll open up and default to the J1939 tab. There's also a tab for pressure indication where it'll read the current pressure on the sensor, and you have options for the units here. There's a CAN Open tab, which is basically just for reading pressure because we use a program called CAFEX Co-Edit to configure all of our CAN Open devices. There's the STW CAN proprietary protocol sensor tab here, and lastly J1939. And this training is going to mostly, or will only cover the J1939 configuration here. So to begin with, you can go into your settings and set up your CAN interface. I'm using a Peak Systems dongle, so we've got a basic network set up here, and the bit rate is set to 250 for J1939. The defaults should be fine. It should prompt you to create a network if one isn't already connected or created. And down here at the bottom, it'll tell you that the CAN is initialized, if it's initialized properly, and what driver it's actually using. So here we can set the start time before we click connect, because we'll have this amount of time in seconds to turn on and apply power to the sensor before it'll try to actually read the values from the sensor to populate all these fields. So what I'll do here is I'll click connect and I'll turn on my sensor. So I'm going to put this up to 3 seconds. Click connect, turn on power to the sensor, and we're connected. So this particular sensor I'm using, it shows the serial number down here, the pressure range of the sensor, and the firmware version that is loaded onto that sensor. It also shows the current PGN and the SPN as well as the slot. So all of the this is process information. This is just text information about different things going on during the program. So this will have info over here in this window as you work. This window right here is the SAE standard PGN and SPN configuration. So it'll know which PGNs and SPNs that this sensor can use, and that is based on this slot. So it knows that there are, X number of PGNs that the sensor is compatible with, and we can choose any of them from this drop-down menu. And then once we select a PGN, it'll populate the SPN drop-down menu with the supported SPNs for that PGN. So for instance, If I want to change one of these, I can come in here, choose any of them, and then check the SPNs to see which ones are supported. If I want to read what is currently on the sensor, I can just click Get, and it'll reset these to the current PGN and SPN that is loaded onto the sensor. So let's just say I wanted to change it here. I'll come down and select the engine auxiliary coolant, and we'll just use this SPN here since that's the only one available. And simply click Set. It will say, do you really want to change these? Click Yes, and your settings are now saved. And when you click Get, it now reads that you have a different PGN and SPN set. So that's all there is to configure an SAE standard PGN and SPN. Over here you'll see the source address configuration, and this is for if you want to use the default dynamic address claiming, which means that, here I'll click the more info, and it means that if the box is left unchecked, the sensor will dynamically claim the lowest available source address at startup. Otherwise, you can use values of 0 to 255 per decimal or 0 to FF for hexadecimal. So if I want to force a source address, I can say I want to use source address 3 for this sensor. Click Set. Settings are saved. So now if I change these up and uncheck this, click Get, it'll bring it back to my configuration so I can verify that it's actually been set. So this is really handy, so you don't have to, if you have a system that's expecting a particular source address from one of your J1939 devices, one of your sensors, you can configure it here now and force that source address with the sensor, and it can make your life a lot easier when you're programming for these things. Now if you want to use a proprietary PGN, we also support that, so we can click this checkbox here, and it brings up some different options here, especially in this window. If I click more info here, we'll see that when the box is checked, PGNs between the range of 65280 and 65535 will be usable, because these are the SAE proprietary PGN ranges. These PGNs are in proprietary range. If I click more info here, we can see that we've got boxes for the data position and our number between 0 and 7. This is for where the data will start in the CAN message, which byte in the CAN message the data is going to start in. The transmit rate here is in milliseconds, so we can configure that, how fast the message sends on the CAN bus. And lastly, we have this custom data span, which allows you to scale the sensor, and it says here 0 to 65535 are the valid values. The scaling is unitless and covers the full range of the sensor and does not affect the live pressure value seen at the bottom of the tool. So what this means is if I wanted to set my CAN output of the sensor into a unit of percentage instead of bar or kilopascals or whatever it is, you can change that here, and I could simply enter 0 as the min and 100 as the max, 100% value. And now my units are in percent on CAN. It's going to scale the full range of that sensor's value into these numbers. So if 0 pressure is 0, and then suddenly, if you've got a 250 bar sensor, or say, I don't know, a 20 bar sensor, that 20 bar, the maximum value will be this number. So it'll do a linear interpolation through the range and scale your values here, and you can change this to anything you want within the specified valid range of 0 to 65535. So if I want to enter a proprietary PGN now, I could select the first available proprietary PGN, which is 65280, and I could change the message rate to, say, 750 milliseconds and move the data to the third byte in the message, which is 2 in the range of 0 to 7. We'll keep the source address at 3, and I'll click Set, Yes, and now our settings are saved. So I've now selected this to use proprietary PGNs, and I can disconnect and reconnect, and we'll see how it displays the data when we reconnect here. So I'll click Connect, apply power, and we've reconnected, and we can see that all the settings that we selected are saved. And then here it tells us now that we've updated our message transmit rate, the data position, and we're using source address 3 with our proprietary PGN. So I can disconnect now, and I can check the CAN bus and see what this data actually looks like right now. So we minimize this, and I'll bring up our PCAN view program. Connect it 250K for J1939, and I'll reset the sensor power. And we see the first message, which is the address claiming message. And the second message now is the data. And we can see that this is indeed using the proprietary PGN FF00, which is hex for 65280. And the source address is 3. So it accepted our configuration and it moved the data into the third byte in the CAN message. So we can close out of here, go back into the CANfigurator, and let me connect. And now let's go back to using a SAE PGN. I'll just pick a random one here, set it. Let me disable the source address. Click set, settings saved. And now I can go back into PCAN view, reset the sensor, and now it has claimed the first address of 01, and we can see the settings are all reset now to use this SAE PGN, and it's using its own cycle time that was pulled from the settings for this particular PGN. So this is it. This is how it works. We can now choose both proprietary and SAE PGNs. A lot of customers have been asking for this, and we're proud to be able to offer this now. So we hope this works out well for you. And if you have any further questions about this, please contact S2W support, and we'd be more than happy to help you with any issues you have and any questions. So thank you for watching.